Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Awesome in Seattle podcast. This is your host, Christian Nossum of the Awesome Nossum Group at Wilson Realty. And today, we have a special guest. A repeat appearance, but for a different reason today. This is Joanna Beecher.
It's me. It's Joanna. Hello.
She is an agent here on the Awesome Nossum Group with me.
Gladly.
Broker, I should say. Broker,
yes.
Agent, same thing. Not realtor, technically. Even
No.
though everyone thinks we are, because that's, yeah. Anyway, Joanna is here today, and not necessarily to talk from the view of a real estate agent, but from the view of a pet lover.
Yes.
Because in addition to knowing all sorts of things about real estate, she is insanely knowledgeable when it comes to pets and has a ton of empathy for pets and loves them so much. Not only do you have your own, but you volunteer with animals and shelters and all that fun stuff.
I do. I've worked on all different sides of that coin as well.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining me, because I'm going to be interviewing you today.
This is crazy. I get to be on this side of things today. I love it, though.
So the point of today's episode is to really help people that have pets or are going to get a pet after they buy a house, understand really what they should and shouldn't be focusing on when searching for a home.
Yes.
And whether that's location, whether that's size of the house, whether that's yard size, whether that's rooftop deck or not, whether all the different things, condos, not condos, townhomes, not town, like we'll go over everything. So that is the whole point of today's conversation. If you are thinking of buying a house or your next house and you're going to incorporate a pet into that life decision, this is the episode you got to listen to.
Absolutely.
So pets are such an important part of everyone's life, but they do come up with their own special case of needs that they have. Finding that perfect home is super important. And I guess, what do you think about yard size when it comes to pet? I've always heard, and I don't have a dog. I had a dog growing up, but we lived in the suburbs and we had a huge yard, so it was fine. But a lot of our clients are cool like buying a townhouse. Is that really smart?
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I have had one dog. I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. I've spanned the range of different sizes of apartments, homes. And I will say this, it's all about your commitment level to an animal.
So what do you mean by commitment level?
Commitment level means, first of all, knowledge on what you're bringing into your home. Different animals require very different levels of commitment, and that can be...
My pet goldfish does not need me to take it on walks.
No, it does not. It doesn't need a yard. Cats don't need a yard, especially
True.
in a city. Mm-hmm. I could do a whole podcast on this alone. Also, if you get a small dog, a big dog, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. How much yard do they need? And I will tell you this, no matter what size of dog you get or have, they don't always need a yard. It's all about, when I say commitment too, it's about how much do you want to walk them? And that being said, even if you have a dog and you have a yard, it's proven you should be walking them several times a day anyway, because it exercises their brain and through their noses. Mm-hmm. That's another important thing to remember. Mm-hmm. But that being said, if you do buy a townhome, yes, make sure you have some sort of area, whether that be an area it doesn't even have to be huge, an area for them to go outside and do their business. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to walk them every single time, because some dogs that are smaller, they can't hold it as long. So they need more outside breaks. If you do have a rooftop deck, that's fine as well. Make sure your dog can do the stairs to the rooftop deck, or that they're small enough to carry up to that rooftop deck, or you're super strong and you can carry a big dog up to that rooftop deck. And also, that being said, when you have a rooftop deck, if you have a dog, obviously you want somewhere for them to use the facilities, which means if you can do everything from a real grass pad that you can get delivered and replaced every month or however many times a month you need.
So there's like subscription services that will, wow, they like send you like an actual patch of grass.
Yes,
that's
they
live.
roll it up.
Wow.
Live grass, and they give you something to put it in depending on what size you want, and then they depending on how much you need it replaced, you can do it once a month. You can do it twice. You can do it 4 times a month if that's what you need.
Wow.
So there are so many options. But when you have a rooftop deck, if you're going to do like that kind of AstroTurf lawn, you do need to be aware that those get incredibly hot. Damaging your animals' pads is just not recommended.
Pads
it's just
on their feet,
cruel. So you want to make sure that that has some shade over it, because otherwise, you know, even in Seattle, we get a lot of hot sun. And it's super important to make sure that they are safe.
Yeah,
in
I
that
know,
scenario.
like, whenever I bring my kids to like soccer or baseball or something and they're playing on a turf field, that turf is at least 15 to 20 degrees hotter.
It's so hot.
So hot. So it's, I can
It
only
can be very
see-
dangerous to us as humans, let alone, you know, an animal that goes to walk on it. So just need to be wary of that. Obviously during the winter time, most likely going to be fine. But
but
so,
if it's 70 or 80 degrees outside, which is a typical summer day in
hot.
Seattle, it could be like 95, 100 degrees on that, on that
and this
AstroTurf grass stuff.
same thing with asphalt, you know, so something to remember just about your, you know, if the area that you have isn't necessarily grass in the front or back of your townhome, just make sure, you know, you understand the heating of the ground in that area. But I want to bring up condos because I know a lot of people, especially in the Seattle area, if you're buying your first home, sometimes a lot of people have condo budgets and they're like, well, this means I can't get a dog. I strongly disagree with that. And like I said, once again, commitment level.
I thought you were going to say the opposite. If someone had a dog or they want to get a dog, they should like cross out condos as an option. But
Nope.
No, huh?
I don't think so. For example, let's say you get a Great Dane. Those are actually great condo dogs. They don't love a ton of running around. They very much love their people and they want to be inside with them and they snuggle up on the couch just fine.
They take up half the couch, but they snuggle.
Also that, but they're great for, you know, having in a smaller space, oddly enough. Just make sure they don't have a lot of stuff they can knock over with their booties. So, and it just, look at the energy level of your dog. Once again, that brings up that commitment. If you're getting a border collie and you're putting it in a condo, you are going to be taking a lot of trips outside. That's where sniff spots come in handy. Just getting them outside is a big piece of it. And that's another thing I want to bring up. And you might be asking me about this in a minute and we can touch on it more. If you do buy a condo, let's say, and you have a dog or a couple of dogs, is there a park nearby? You know, when you go out for a walk, is there a dog park nearby or a place where you can run them?
Or a school or something where there's open grass.
Yeah, I utilize baseball fields
Yeah.
like nobody's business. You know, I make sure nobody's around, obviously, or you make sure you have a really long lead on your dog so that they can do their running around but still, you know, be under your control to some extent. Or make sure your dog has very good recall because there are leash laws in Seattle and we should be following those. So you have to do this all just very, you know, you have to know your dog. And if you don't know them or they don't have a great recall, always have a leash on. Always, always, always. Very important.
Yep. Let's talk about those days where it's muddy and the dog's coming into the house.
Good times, yeah.
I have seen more and more recently that homes have like dog washes built in. If someone can't afford yet or doesn't want to add a dog wash to their home, what is the best way? Is just the bathtub? Is that like the easiest way to do it?
I mean, yeah, I would say, honestly, if you do get a home and you are able to have a mudroom and you can have a dog wash in there, obviously, dream scenario. It doesn't even have to be fancy. It's just so great because we get a lot of rain here in Seattle. It's so weird. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Even in August.
It's going to occur a lot. So you want to get, you know, into your habits and what makes the most sense for your home. If you can, a walk-in shower, like a 3/4 bath is ideal because 3/4 bath is the stand-up shower. Because if you have a larger dog like myself or a dog with injuries that is larger, getting them into a tub can be very hard.
That's a good point. And think about stepping up and over that ledge of a bathtub.
Younger, you know, they're no problem usually. But, you know, as dogs age, it gets to be more challenging. So a walk-in shower is the best.
And then I assume, like with that walk-in shower, you probably want a shower head that
moves around,
that can detach and has the
those
attached.
are ideal.
Yeah.
And if you can't get any of those, there are a lot of doggy washes out there. You just have to find your local one that makes the most sense for you. And also make sure you have a lot of wipies and towels. If you can't do any of those things, the wipies and towels will save you. Yeah. I am very good with those.
Yeah. And I've, just so you guys know, if you don't realize, getting a shower head or swapping out a shower head that maybe is only a shower head into one that has the hose attachment, they're not expensive. It's like $150.
If that, I mean,
that,
I've gone on Amazon and I've gotten ones for like less than $50 and they don't last as long, but they still work. You know, you can get different, you know,
all varies how crazy
varieties.
You want to get.
But they're out there, and they even have ones that have the filter, the water filter in there. So love that.
All right. So let's talk about like yards. Excuse me. Let's talk about yards and how, you know, in townhomes, it doesn't have to be a big one. As long as you can open the door, let them run out, do their business, and run back in, that's really all you need.
Yeah, it'll save you a lot of headaches. I'll just say that.
That said, I assume you want it to be fenced. Let's talk about kind of yard security. What does that look like?
Okay. So there are a lot of different types of yards here in Seattle. But one of the things that I will say is if you can get a wooden fence opposed to a chain link, it's probably better just for, you know, hopefully you're rescuing your pet. And then in that case, if you are, that's great. But sometimes they might have some reactivity. They might be very scared. So
so the wood is going to block visually what's on the other side, whereas chain link, it's going to be obvious.
It's going to be very, and with chain link, it's not the worst. If you know your dog very well and they're super friendly, go for it. If you love the look of that, by all means. But I just have known so many dogs that are just so triggered or overstimulated when they can see everyone walking by, especially if you're in a busy area. Doing something that's wooden, doesn't matter, you know, like what kind, as long as most of their vision can be blocked. And depending on how large your dog is or how fit they are, because certain dogs can jump a fence like it's nothing. You wouldn't even think it, or they're super clever with digging under.
Yeah, that's true.
Those huskies, and a lot of people love their huskies up here. You want to make sure that, because they're going to dig. They're great at it. They are so smart, and they have energy for days. So you want to make sure that your fence is very secure, not just above the dirt line, but below the dirt line. You want to make sure it goes pretty deep. I'm not sure how deep. I'm not that much of an expert, but
what is do you have any clue? Like, because putting dirt underneath ground is dirt, or putting a fence wood underneath dirt is not a good idea. So
maybe
like
cement,
adding, like cement or like rocks or something. Although I guess dogs could.
My dogs aren't that driven, so I haven't really had to deal with this scenario. And that's also how long are you keeping your dogs in that fenced area unsupervised? Yeah. I don't suggest it. Like when you leave the house, you have to make sure your fencing is secure enough to keep your dogs in. That's like a lot of the times when you hear bad news in the news about dogs roaming, it's because they've escaped a yard because they were unsupervised. So that alone right there, like don't get an animal thinking, well, I just have to keep it outside all the time. That's actually not a great idea, especially unsupervised. So you want to make sure that it is just a fence type that makes sense for your dog to be unsupervised for a short period of time.
Got it. Let's talk about plants. Are there any plants you want to make sure you don't have in your yard space?
100%. Always want to do your research to make sure that the plants that you do have are animal friendly, but there's a couple of outstanding ones that I like to absolutely make sure that my dogs are not around, and that is foxtail. Foxtail looks like wheat, kind of almost, I guess, is what I would say. But it's very spiky, and it's the reason that so many dogs end up in the emergency vet because the way foxtail is made, it gets into their fur or paw pad, ears, nose, and it doesn't have a way back. It's like a screw that doesn't go back.
Wow.
And it just goes in, and it creates a lot of issues, and it gets into their bloodstream.
Sure, it's very painful.
Very painful, and a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's everywhere. Starting in the summertime, it just starts to go everywhere. You'll see huge batches of it. And I keep my dogs away from it at all costs because if you want to talk about expensive, that is not cheap. It's super painful for them and you don't want to see them go through that. So foxtail is a huge one that causes a lot of issues.
Any others?
Blackberry bushes, anything thorny, obviously. I mean, for obvious reasons, it does not feel good. So yeah, thorny and foxtail, keep them out, keep it trimmed down. But and just make sure if they're like prone to wanting to eat some sort of berries, always make sure there's non-toxic. Like blueberries, great. If they're okay with blueberries, of course, that's wonderful. But like there's plenty of toxic berry bushes out there that you need to make sure are not poisonous to animals.
Got it. So do
keep
your
those
research.
out.
Yeah. And if you don't know anything about plants like me, just Google it. Figure out what it is, look at the photos, and make sure your yard doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great stuff that they can have, you know. A lot of different types of grasses are great for dogs and cats, to be honest.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I know we already talked about rooftop decks a little, but that was more about using the facilities up there as you described. What about like safety and stuff? Because they're safe for humans because they have like a railing and stuff, but the railings are sometimes, like see-through with just metal poles going horizontally. Yeah. Is there any tips or anything we should pay attention to with that?
Yes, absolutely. And this goes for condo people with balconies as well. Whether you have cats or dogs, you do not ever want to leave them unsupervised, first of all, on any type of roof deck that has any see-through railings at all. But even the ones that just kind of like go up to a human waist, dogs could jump that. Yeah. A cat could jump that. So, it's kind of like use your common sense, or if that isn't common sense for you, that's totally normal, but just realize these animals are athletic and they might be stimulated and want to do something, especially if you're living in the townhomes that are connected and the rooftop decks are not far from each other. You may want to have something else in place. Like have, maybe a leash up there that your dog is connected to when they're on the rooftop deck. Like, let's say if they want to hang out up there, so it's a nice day, but you have to go inside for a bit, just have their harness connected to a leash that doesn't allow them any, like a huge amount of roaming space.
Let's switch gears a little bit. For those looking at condos, I know we kind of touched on it just a little, and I kind of I'm going to redo what I just said. I'm not going to say let's switch gears because it's not. We were just talking condos.
Just talking about condos.
All right. So while talking about condos, what are some other things that condo owners should keep in mind when they're thinking of buying it with having pets?
Well, look at your HOA. That's a big thing.
That's the biggest one, I think. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because they may have a no pets rule. They may have you can only have this many pets rule. They may have a weight limit rule.
They might have a breed rule.
In King County, they can't.
Really?
I don't know if that's just for rentals.
It's something to pay attention to,
That's something, yes. I believe it was just a couple of years ago, a law was passed that you can have no breed restrictions. I know definitely for rentals. And the way they're getting around that is by doing weight limits, not realizing that certain dogs that are considered dangerous can be of all different sizes. That's true.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But that being said, I don't know as far as condo rules go if that falls under a different category. I feel like it wouldn't necessarily. But yeah, those are definitely things you want to pay attention to when you are buying a condo is HOA. And I feel like just being very aware of what is around your condo. Like if you're going to buy a condo in Belltown, would that affect the kind of dog that I would have? Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
There's not a lot of parks around there. It's very busy. Well, that brings up a couple different things. I would definitely want to make sure that there was no breed restrictions because as a woman, if I was buying a condo as a single woman, I would want to get a breed that people might be scared of. honestly.
Yeah.
Just in a big city with Seattle, it would be very smart to have a dog that protects you. So that being said, definitely would alter the type of dog I would go for if I didn't have one already. Because I was going to at first say, well, then I would want a smaller dog because then, I could easily pick them up and things like that. But those aren't nearly as scary to anyone. But they're cute. So it's kind of, it's what are you going for, basically? And if you do have a smaller dog, where are you in the building? Can you get them outside quickly? Because the smaller dogs, they just can't hold it the same way that a larger dog can. Or if your dog has incontinence issues, another thing to pay attention to.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings up like elevators.
It does.
And, how quick are they to get there?
And I've been in this situation, and it's not pretty if somebody isn't keeping up their end of the bargain, basically living in a communal space with an elevator and a dog that has issues, or they can't get out often enough. You need to have certain carpet care products in your arsenal if you're going to have an animal, just in general, because something's going to pop up. It's like kids. It's not but when.
What products do you recommend?
Folex is a great one. It's amazing. I think that works for humans and pets, to be honest.
We have Folex, and we have 2 cats.
You have 2 cats, yeah.
Mostly for the kids.
Yeah, it's for the kids, stuff comes out everywhere, and it's wonderful for that. Yeah,
whatever.
It's great for wine.
Yeah.
Not to sound weird, but blood too. It's great for that. I mean, scratches, paw pads get ripped, things like that, but it does vomit. I mean, gross, but it really helps with that. There's a new one that I just found. Scouts Honor does a lot of great stuff for, speaking of incontinence issues, for urine smells. My cats decided they were going to pee on some stuff this year, and we figured out why, and all is well now, but we did have to learn about some products that I now have in my arsenal. Yeah. So Scouts Honor is great. And then there's one other one I just learned about today, and can we avoid this part because I forgot what it's called. And I don't have it, but I want to buy it. It's called My Pet Goes to the Bathroom. I don't know. I saw it on...
My Pet Goes to the Bathroom. Such a great short name.
It's something stupid that you're like, oh, that's what you called your product, but it makes sense. It's like my dog peed or something like that.
So we'll remove that part.
Yeah, please remove that part.
Appreciate for you. Yes, thank you.
Sorry. But those are the products that I would recommend, just off the top of my head for any, bathroom or bodily secretion related pet issues.
Folex, the way to go. And Scouts Honor.
Scouts Honor too. Yep.
Okay, good to know. Any other things that we didn't touch on yet that you think would be smart for people that are considering buying a house with pets or soon to be to have pets?
One of the big things that, as we get hotter, just making sure you've got good ventilation in your home. AC is obviously ideal, but especially condo, if you don't have AC, but you have big windows, which I know a lot of Seattle and just in general, a lot of condos have the big windows and no AC, get a really great AC unit for not only yourself, but for your animal who, if you leave them alone all day, remember to turn that on. Yeah. It's just nice.
One thing you touched on earlier that I actually want to bring back up, and that is something called a sniff spot.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we talk about that for a second? What is a sniff spot, and why would someone want to use that?
And why didn't I think of it as my business?
Exactly.
Because I love it so much.
Yes, you use it all the time.
So people that either live in apartments or condos.
Really anyone. Because
it is
I
really
have a good yard, but I would still probably want to go do this because it just seems fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
So what is it?
Sniff Spot is an app that anyone can go on to, whether you're an owner of a yard or land space. You can put your land or your yard on Sniff Spot so people that have dogs can rent it from you.
It's pretty cool.
And if you are a dog owner and your dog is either reactive or very shy, or you just need a bigger space to run your animal around in, you can rent this land for not a crazy amount of money. And if you're renting your land, it's just something that is just a nice thing to do. That's how I see it as somebody who uses Sniff Spot a lot. Gives us options as dog owners to get our dogs out into a bigger space. Because the people who do rent their land out, they don't charge an insane amount of money because it's just you charge per dog, you charge per, the amount of time. And you can also like do it where people have basically a membership just to go to your yard.
Oh, wow.
And they get a discounted price and they get the option to rent first.
So if you're living in a neighborhood in Seattle and you don't have a big yard, but you don't have time to go to a dog park, or your dog doesn't do well at a dog park for whatever reason, you could just rent a sniff spot and utilize that in private, solo, with your animals and yourself, and get that outdoor space that you need, that outdoor time that they need.
It's super helpful.
Yeah.
And you can, people rent out all different sizes. I will say, and this is a calling to everyone in Seattle, if you have a yard, no matter what size, Christian, you could put that on Sniff Spot for me, because right now there is like 0 in the Seattle area of any size.
Wow.
And I know there's people with yards.
So there's a
There's a
space
lack.
in the market.
There's a great space in the market. The problem, you'll have your yard full all the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of me's out there in Seattle that really are looking for a space that isn't north, east, or south that we can use.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for all of your expertise today. I hope that this helps anyone that's looking at buying that either has or wants to have a pet.
It's my pleasure.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I could talk about this all day. So if you sign up for
you
a
can.
strategy session and you want to, rack my brain on anything animal related,
Yes.
I will gladly do that.
Yes, she knows her stuff for sure. I don't ask her questions, and she still tells me lots about it.
All the time.
Well, thank you, Joanna. If you did want to schedule a strategy session with her, you can do that right on our website, and it's totally free. There's no charge. That's
We can
what
talk
free means.
houses too
We
if
can
you
talk
want. I mean,
houses.
that's my other thing.
You can talk sniff spots. You can talk whatever you want. AwesomeNossum.com/schedule. That is the easy way to schedule a time with us. Thank you so much. Hope you learned a lot on this week's episode of the Awesome in Seattle podcast. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.